This is the Freya Ultra, and the Ultra is the extra column on the left side that can be a volume slider or macro keys. This keyboard has magnetic connectors for the USB-C, pogo pins so that they don't need to bridge using more JSTs and ribbon cables, a knob here with a screen that is touch, per key RGB, and all the components are swappable, so you can get macro column here and you can change these to keys as well. This keyboard seems to have something for everyone. To step back, this is a 65% keyboard with some extra keys. So there's extra keys on the left, we call that 65 plus. And here, instead of just having a macro column, they typically like their truncated navigation cluster with 4 keys. And the 4 keys makes up this big ass knob. Overall, it's gonna be a pretty big footprint, so it's not gonna be slim on your desk. Aesthetically, this is the Valhalla collaboration. And you see that crazy weight in the back with the PVD and engravings all around. It's pretty sick, very detailed and stylized and flashy to match PVD fans Valhalla. Definitely doesn't look like a boring keyboard. The huge PVD on the weight is definitely a showstopper and a fingerprint magnet. But the cutout is super nice. The huge touchscreen knob is the main draw. Configurable via apps, you can show your own GIFs, computer stats, WPM, etc. It's a very high-tech feature for sure. A lot of the gaming companies like Asus and Razer have some kind of screen in the top right, some OLED, some black and white, but this one's full color and it can load images. And it's definitely not a feature that some older enthusiasts like myself are into, but it's really cool for those who want something that stands out. I was definitely a huge fan of the OLED screens in the Satisfaction 75, but that was like 4 years ago. There's a magnetic little badge here that you can swap out. On top of that, it has a tri-mode PCB, wireless dongle, Bluetooth, and wired. So 3 options. That means you can keep this simple. For me, I use a Logitech G Pro X Superlight, and if I skip the cable on this, I can have truly wireless peripherals. In here, there's 2 batteries that keep it juiced up. And it's been juiced for days. I've had this in a box before this video and it stays lit up. Assembly wise, this one's a little tougher than most. Although there's less places for it to break because there's only 1 ribbon cable and the ribbon cable is magnetic, so when you pull it out, it doesn't break. It still needs to connect somehow. The pogo pins are these little needles that make the metal connection, so it doesn't need a JST or a ribbon cable. But those pogo pins are very sensitive. They have to line up with the receiving end or else it won't make the connection and it won't light up, it won't work. There's bridging pads screwed into the case itself that allow the volume slider to make contact with the main PCB, as well as a knob make contact with the main PCB. During the GB run, people had issues with the pogo pins because it didn't fully make contact. For this extras run, there's acrylic spacers that screw into the case that allow the bridging pad to be raised up, reducing the distance the pogo pins need to reach to make an electrical connection. It's a very simple, elegant fix, but it allowed me to get everything connected on the second try. It took a little bit of work because it's very sensitive. The plate itself also has alignment pins that are already screwed and already installed, unlike Keycaps, that allows it to really hold its shape. The knob and the main PCB connected right away. The volume slider needed a little bit of work, which is where the spacer came in. I will also say the volume slider has a likelihood of scratching against the case and grinding, which is something I experienced on the Satisfaction 75 knob as well. So all you have to do is partially screw it in, and then you kind of motivate it over, like kind of hold it a little bit, and then screw in the other screws. That way, when you get the volume slider here, it's not grinding against anything. Be careful with it. Just know that there's a little bit of room you can work with it. It's not the perfect design. This is a quick little fix. Once you screw it in, you don't have to touch it again. The USB-C connector in the back is magnetically connected. Once you pull the plate and PCB off, the magnetic connector will just detach and it'll be dangling and you should be good. Like, you don't have to worry about possibly forgetting that there's a ribbon cable, yanking it too hard because you're big and strong, and breaking the ribbon cable connector. It's definitely a nice touch, but the Flip 6P implementation was a little bit better because there's nothing dangling off the PCB. So instead of it being connected up here, it was connected down here. It was a big pad. It just stuck to itself. That was a little bit faster, but hey, I do like that magnetic connections are making more into mainstream keyboards, or at least mainstream within the mechanical keyboard space. As for the mounting style, it's using springs, like actual springs. The plate itself has little cutouts for these rubber pieces. The springs push the plate up and the silicone pieces are what interacts with the top of the case. So this is a spring mount like a mattress. Interesting design here, as you can change the type of feel by swapping off the springs. You can go stiffer, you can go softer. I like them a little bit more flexible, so I kept the stock springs. You definitely can go harder though. The plate is very interesting. There is a plate that goes around the numero and mods that's polycarbonate. The alphas themselves are just FR4. So you get the nice sound out of a stiffer plate out of the alphas, and you get the flexible typing experience from the polycarbonate interacting with the spring. So there's give overall, and there's a little bit stiff where you want it. It's interesting to me because I would typically run 9.5 plate, which is going to be more flexible in the middle, and then having more stiffness at the edge, like a half aluminum plate. But this is a different design, and the plate screws into the other plate. I didn't find the design bad at all. We built it the HMX Machiattos, so they're long poles, and the sound is very decent. It's a bit weak in the spacebar. You can see I flipped the spacebar here because I was like, maybe it sounds bad because it's north facing. I swapped it, rotated it, didn't really make a difference. There's just gonna be a little bit of hollowness in the spacebar. And this is built, of course, with no foams. I always do that. No PE foam, no PCB foam, PCB/plate, and no case foam. I run it raw. This way I know that if I just want to put some foam in there, just put some case foam to reduce the hollowness, I can do that. I don't want to just do that and not know if I can remove it or not. But I also think that the sound is weak there because there's a gasket mounting point right at the plate here. I might want to consider removing the springs, so we'll give that a try. My methodology with foam may be against what other people think, because they think, oh, if it's designed with foam and they give you foam, you might as well use it with foam. Like if you tape and PE foam anything, you can make a $20 keyboard sound good. Made out of plastic, 3D printed even, and it'll probably sound good. I want to know if the CNC aluminum board with the PVD weight or even all aluminum board can sound good without foam. That way we have options. What if you're not so interested in the stiff typing experience of a fully foamed board? I just think it's due to the case design that the spacebar doesn't sound as good. But the alphas and the mods, they sound pretty good. I will say I'm cheating a little bit because long poles make boards sound better, so keep that in mind. If you're gonna use a non-center pole bottom out switch, it may sound a little bit more hollow. I also was able to do this without standoffs. I don't like using standoffs because wherever the standoffs are, it's gonna be stiffer. With hot swap, it definitely does help because with standoffs, you can remove switches the entire board at the same time, and the standoffs will hold the plate and PCB distance, so you just insert switches in. But it sounds weird and inconsistent across the board. So what I like to do, even with hot swap, is I don't use the standoffs. I take more time to insert the switches, make sure that the plate snaps up into every single switch. And when I do hot swap, I'm going to remove one switch and then put another switch in. So I'm doing it very slowly, one at a time. That way, the switches hold the plate up and I can skip having standoffs. But if you're going to be hot swapping a lot, solid standoffs allows you to hot swap very easily without having to think about it. Like I said, the alphas in general are very solid and the board was very usable with long poles. But without foam, the sound doesn't really keep up with my other keyboards. The spacebar is a little weak. Is that a deal breaker? It's to your preferences, of course. If you don't mind using foam, you're golden. This keyboard here has every modern feature except maybe magnetic case enclosure and Hall effect. But it is still a very aesthetic looking keyboard that has a huge presence on the desk. This unit right here is a special unit. It's a PVD fans collaboration, PVD weight, all the engravings, and this one is $509.99. This is the Valhalla collaboration. That is a lot of money. So in the original group buy for the Freya, not the Ultra, it was $329 in group buy, so that includes a weight. In stock, you have it at $380. If you want to go with the Ultra, so the regular Freya doesn't have the artisan column volume slider. The Ultra has the volume slider and extra width, just much more bigger footprint on the desk. Is $450, so $70 premium over the regular Freya. There's some other color options as well, like the E White. And with the two collaboration editions, $500 gets you the Hyro collaboration, which has the red and black and has really cool weight on the back. The unit I have here is the Valhalla collaboration that has extra detail because it has that extra engravings on the side and the back weight is just nuts. So overall, it's not the cheapest thing, but there's a lot of options at different price points for the aesthetic that you want. I would compare it to something more unique like the Noir maglev keyboard and like a cyberboard, things that are just extremely flashy. It's gonna be up to you. Like if you think it's worth it, it's worth it. If you don't think it's worth it, it's okay. There's plenty of budget options. Although I don't have PvP fans holla, I think the GMK blue samurai here works pretty well. This gray right here is more like a greenish tealish gray, so keep that in mind. But at $510 is a big chunk of change. You get a basic keyboard for like 200 bucks, just bare bones. And then if you go into more features, probably maybe 350, 465. Sometimes it's a material thing, sometimes it's a design thing. This has design, materials, technology. Is it worth the money? I don't know. It definitely sits in more premium price point and is extremely unique with a huge knob. It's up to you to decide. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.